Hey everybody, welcome back to Only Stupid Answers. My name is DJ Wooldridge. This is the show where we like to talk about movies, TV shows, comic books, and Loki. And today we are talking about episode 2. And with me is Roxy Striar from, you may know from the main show that we do. Say hi, Roxy.
Hi, Roxy.
I'm so glad.
Isn't that always so obnoxious when people do that? Hi, Roxy.
Hi.
Oh, I did it.
We start with a little fun gag where it looks like we're going back into medieval times, but we're actually at a Ren fair, and a group of TVA agents are attacked by this rogue Loki, and Mobius comes to investigate with Loki, and of course Loki immediately starts to stall for time, but it is here that we start learning that, Roxy, do you remember? There's going to be some holes in my notes because
But the answer is no.
We like the day before the first episode dropped, our screeners went away. I almost missed it. I didn't tell you this. I was like, I had a mini panic attack. I'm like, what if the screener ends early? So I think it ended on Tuesday at 9 a.m. and I checked at 8 a.m.
I went back to rewatch and it was gone.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were doing that.
Yeah. So point is, there might be some holes in my notes. The little bomb device. I don't remember what it's called. The device that's supposed to eradicate all of the things. We find out that this Loki has been
The
taken.
Tesseract?
No, it's the thing that the TVA uses at a quote unquote crime scene or whatever.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah. So the Loki's the other Loki's stealing that, and this Loki is being his usual trickstery self. What do you think about, in these early episodes, what do you think about Loki's relationship with the TVA?
I think what's great is that we don't effing trust him.
Yeah.
So we don't know what he's doing. Anytime you think he's going astray, he might be. He might not be. We don't know his intention. We don't know his full thoughts. We don't even know if he knows that. I feel like he could flip on a dime at anybody, anything. So I think that that's a really unique premise for a series where we usually wholeheartedly trust our protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
We don't. We shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
But we do because he's endearing.
Yeah.
So talk about life. But yeah, I think that this is cool. And I also think it's going to give Tom Hiddleston a real opportunity, even though he is a shapeshifter. So there's a lot of actors that will have the opportunity, but I think we're going to see him in multiple different lights and him be able to portray him. His acting jobs are coming through hardcore.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Do you think we're on a trajectory to turn Loki into a full-on hero by the end of the show?
I think maybe, but I'm not sure.
And
that's cool that I'm genuinely not sure.
Oh my goodness, I'm not wearing a different shirt. You're wearing a different shirt. I'm clearly a time variant from a different timeline, here to tell you that you should go to HELLBENTcomicbook.com because this DJ, every DJ in all the timelines, has a new comic that he's written with Jane and July, with art by Heather Vaughn, colors by Ellie Wright, letters by Haley Rose Lyon, variant covers by the amazing Danny and Nicole Goo. And if you want that, you should go to hellbentcomicbook.com or go to Kickstarter and type in Hellbent, or click the link in the description so you can go grab that comic. It's already funded. As of this recording, it's already funded. And so now we're moving on to our stretch goals. We're making this comic the best thing it can possibly be. We're so excited to share with you. People are really excited for right now. It is a supernatural thriller like classic Vertigo comics like Preacher and Sandman. And so if you're into that sort of thing, if you're into comics that are kind of edgier, kind of more challenging, you should go check it out. HELLBENTcomicbook.com. Now I've got to go, clearly, because I'm a variant and the TVA is going to be here any second to erase me from existence. I don't know. Back to the Loki review. Thanks. Bye. Mobius, after this incident, sends Loki on a homework assignment. He makes Loki look for clues, which Loki starts looking up stuff about Asgard. He finds out about destruction about it. I want to say a number's thrown out that like 9,000 people died. I'm like, oh wow, not a lot of people were living on Asgard.
I was expecting a much larger number as well.
I also, if for anybody that's watched Ragnarok, I don't know, or any Thor movie, I don't know what they do. Like, I don't know what the people on Asgard do. Like, what are their jobs? What are they?
They kick it. Beach.
Beach.
They kick it.
Yeah, beach days. It's pretty chill there, actually. And Loki comes up with the idea that he would probably hide in apocalypses because you can change the timeline without it making an effect that the Time Variance Authority would notice. And they do a little...
I thought that was really smart.
Yeah, and it's a good way to show Loki as being clever. And they go to Pompeii, and he does... he messes stuff up, and then it's all wiped out by Pompeii. He's proven to be at least right about that aspect of it. What did you think about this, Loki figuring this out in our little visit to Pompeii?
Yeah, I thought this was really smart. I thought that it was a really clever way of doing it. However, my heartstrings were being pulled like crazy because every time we go to these places and these people, and like when we see Loki tell them, and the volcano's going to explode and this is going to happen, I felt so bad for them.
Mm-hmm.
It was so gutting.
Yeah.
Because even though it doesn't change the timeline, somebody's final moments, you're not going to give them peace.
Yeah.
It made me hate Loki again.
Mm-hmm.
Watching him do that, I'm like, God, you're such a bastard sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, people's lives matter and their feelings matter and these moments matter, even though you think they don't because they don't affect the timeline.
Yeah. You did make
How did you feel, DJ?
You did make me think of one of my favorite bits in the video when he goes to tell this idea to Mobius. He was like, he's like, I was looking at Asgard, and Mobius was like, yeah, it's a real tragedy. And Loki's like, yeah. You can tell that he kind of doesn't care. Like, he kind of, whatever.
Like, anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to talk about my thing. And I like those little moments with that character. And I think you're right. It is interesting. I think there's a line later about, caring about people in their last moments, but it kind of feels like they don't with Pompeii, or especially Loki doesn't. And I do wonder with the time travel stuff, like I'm still a little shaky on the rules we're setting up here. So if they were to go back to Pompeii, would they be able to see themselves having this moment?
I don't think so.
Okay. Why?
Because they weren't really, it didn't have a lasting effect. So it's like they weren't really there.
Okay. I'm a little shaky.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, DJ. That would be my guess.
I don't want to get lost in the weeds on it. I don't know that it matters all that much, but I do think with, the introduction of the idea of the sacred timeline, which seems to kind of counter everything they talked about in Endgame. It does make me wonder how time travel works in this show, and also what I'm supposed to care about and what I'm not supposed to care about. It's not as bad as like a Tenet so far, where it's like we're telling you not to care about it, but literally the entire movie's explaining this mechanic. It's more in Back to the Future territory, where it's like, listen, we're having fun. Right? We're going along for the ride. We're having fun, and I'm down with that. I love Back to the Future, so I'm okay with that. But I do have questions, and I am interested to see. Specifically in this episode 2, and Mobius spends some time with Ravonna Renslayer, played by Mbatha-Raw. We get some more conversation about the Timekeepers. I think I kept calling them Time Masters in the previous episode. I don't think that's right. I think they're the Timekeepers. We're definitely setting...
Well, I guess the Keepers are technically masters.
Yeah. And we're setting it up. There's a lot of setup with what these guys, so it's either going to be a reveal that they don't exist, or they're not as powerful as we think, or maybe they are as powerful as we think, but they're bad. We're setting something up there.
Can you give me any comic book precedent for these? So there's 3 of them. Do we know anything about? Can you give me anything?
No. You bring up a good point in that I definitely should have looked it up before we did this show, so I could do.
It's not that you're just my guru, so I didn't know if you knew. Because to me, this is a new concept here. I don't know anything about the Timekeepers.
Yeah, so based on this little lookup I just did, they first showed up in Thor 282 in April 1979. They are connected.
And there was 3 of them, or it's a whole group?
There's 3 of them, and it looks like they have a whole backstory here. Like
do they
somebody
look like humans?
They look like in the show, where Loki keeps referring to them as lizard people, and that seems to be a pretty spot on. I do think in the show they have some stuff that makes them look similar to Kang. The way they're depicted reminds me of Kang from the comics, who of course we're setting up for Quantumania, Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania. So I don't know if there'll be a connection there.
Have you heard the theory that none of this is actually happening and this is all Kang manipulating the situation so that this is what Loki feels like is happening?
No, I've not heard that. I don't know that I would like that. I'm not a big fan of like, no, none of this is happening. Because it takes away some of the stakes. And I also think we've now had 2 shows where people were like, this character's going to show up. And I feel like at this point we should know better. We should be like, I think we know who is or is not going to show up.
Not that Kang's going to show up in this, but that is what this is leading to, because they keep saying that this is going to have the biggest effect on the Marvel Cinematic Universe moving forward.
I would say the most likely thing we will see is Michael Waldron is also writing Multiverse of Madness. And considering the big point of this show is no multiverse, and there's a movie with the multiverse in the title, I wouldn't be surprised. And Loki has a relationship with Doctor Strange. It wouldn't surprise me if we see Doctor Strange maybe. We might lay seeds out for Kang. Something else I've been seeing doing the rounds, I don't know if you've seen this, Roxy. They've been talking about Nexus events on this show, and one of the commercials in WandaVision talked about the antidepressant commercial was called Nexus. So maybe
I didn't notice that.
We're connecting those ideas together. But it is interesting that like the MCU in Phase 4 really is hitting over this multiverse thing. And it is interesting because as of right now, Falcon and Winter Soldier is my favorite of the things we've done. And it has nothing to do with any of that. It has none of it.
Me too. Me too. We're on the same page there.
Truly enjoying the show. I do enjoy the show. It's just so far it's still Falcon and Winter Soldier for me. So I don't know how excited I am that it seems like
that touched the world more. You know, it made more points. How are you feeling about the action in Loki?
We get a little bit at the end of this episode that I think is actually pretty well executed. It is definitely not an action-oriented show, which I'm fine with, because I think you just mentioned the Falcon and Winter Soldier touching on the world, and I'm thinking that like the character-centric stuff in these shows is what interests me the most. And so the stuff, anytime we start digging into who Loki is, I find really fascinating. What are your thoughts, though? Before we get into that, what are your thoughts on the action in the show?
Just saw a lot of people tweeting about the lack of action.
Yeah.
And I was surprised by that, because when you think about Loki, you know, we're not talking about Iron Man or Cap or Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
We're talking about Loki.
Yeah.
He's a anti-hero, or whatever you want to call him, because of his mind.
Absolutely.
And yes, he's a shapeshifter, and yes, he's got things that he can do, and yes, but mostly he's a smart ass. So I was surprised how many people were surprised, I think maybe just coming off of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, about the lack of action on this show.
Yeah, that is interesting to me, because I think, you know, when I was talking to Adam, he talked about, some people said these first episode was boring, and it kind of bums me out in the way that I think people they just want the Marvel movies as shows. And I think what excites me about these shows is their ability to dive into things that the Marvel movies don't really have time for. So in WandaVision, even though I thought aspects of that show were pretty wonky, even the ability to play with its conceit of the multiple TV show, that was really cool. The character stuff in Falcon and Winter Soldier really interested me. And here, the part that may make this episode I enjoyed more than the first episode was when they sit down with Mobius and they really get into, because the timekeepers and all that are spoken about in kind of faith terms. And so Loki's kind of ribbing Mobius, like, you believe these timekeepers in the sacred timeline, and that's silly. And Mobius is like, oh, and you're whose kid? And he's like, a frost giant. And you lived where? Asgard. He's like, yeah, everybody's story's crazy. And I was like, this is really compelling, mostly because it's Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson. But this idea of like, when Mobius is like, it matters because I believe it matters, I was like, oh, this is actually really compelling. And I hope we spend more time as the show moves forward figuring out like first episode, it's like, what motivates a person? Why do they decide what matters in their life? How do those decisions impact? It's just really interesting stuff. What did you think about the scene with Loki and Mobius?
I'm totally with you. I have, in both episodes, I liked the kind of stop talk moments that we had with them. And I think that that's where the show doesn't need to be extremely high budget, although it is, doesn't need to be have these like vast landscapes, although it does.
Mm-hmm.
It is really cool to see the two of these actors that you hired to do their job, which is make us engage in whatever it is they're talking about. And I think that there's a lot of like, not religious ties here, but religious ties here,
Yeah.
or spiritual ties, or what is and what matters is what we say is and matters.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's interesting. And I think that he does a good job also of like, they do a good job of nodding to the audience, like, oh, you guys think this is ridiculous, but you guys were chill with the other story that we told, get on board.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's a good way. I think paying attention to the fact, and it just shows that they're paying attention. Okay, so Loki has been a villain. He has been an anti. In the first episode, we dive into, okay, why does he do these things, and then characterizing that within the idea of something we know about the character's abilities with illusions, and so it's all an illusion he puts up to not feel so scared. And I think that's true of a lot of bad people in the world. And in this one, like you said, like, okay, he's a god, and we have these timekeepers that are like gods. What does that really mean within the context of the MCU? You know what I mean? As far as belief goes. And then the other thing I liked about this is, so they decide that this person is hiding in apocalypses. They have the bubble gum, the kablooey bubble gum. And so they have a rough time frame. And you talked about Pompeii being kind of dark. And this joke was kind of bleak too. Like, they rattle off like a half dozen fictional apocalypses that are supposed to happen within the next couple decades.
Totally. And I was just like, oh my God, but this is where my heart, this is what I'm telling you, DJ.
Don't remind me.
Yeah. I know. I can't. That's the part of the show that I'm having a hard time stomaching, is like the showing up, don't care that you're dying, and these are what's happening. I'm like, oh my God.
So we go to our to confront this Loki at Rock's cart, which is a nice little Roxxon nod. And we see earlier that this Loki is, I guess, able to, they give it a specific term that I don't remember, but able to like project their consciousness, spoilers, into other people, which was a great moment for Wunmi Mosaku to play Loki, which was great because I love that actress, and it was fun to see her take on. But then it also goes to, what was the character's name? Randy.
So what does happen to them when they're passed out?
Well, they don't die.
Right.
I mean, once they've left.
Yeah.
I guess. Well, the other one, the person that was abducted earlier in the episode, who that actress has been in a bunch of stuff. It was exciting to see her in the show. Doesn't look like great. It doesn't look like it does good things to your mental state.
You have full memory of what is it? What do you think happens after?
I don't know. And correct me if I'm wrong. We haven't seen Loki exhibit that trick before, have we?
I don't think so. But there's a lot of movies. So
there are, and he's in quite a bit of them. And this leads to the one action scene. The short answer is I don't know. We might get into more of that, especially since I think Wunmi Mosaku is a main part of the show going forward, which would be good. And so we'll see how it affects her.
It feels like such a violation.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so I would just be interested. I'm a curious person, but I'd also be interested in seeing the series explore that.
Yeah.
What is that like?
And so this leads to the one action scene we do get where the variant Loki inhabits a larger person that kind of like throws our Loki around.
That was funny.
It was funny and it was cool.
I would never treat me like this.
Another good moment, a great line from Tom Hiddleston. Meanwhile, like Owen Wilson's finding the previously abducted person. And we get the reveal that I think a lot of people who've been following different reports or whatever kind of suspected that this Loki, and we get a nod to it early on, that Loki can come in all shapes and sizes. We see that this Loki is a lady Loki, played by Sophia DiMartino. And she bombs the timeline, which I don't know what that means, but I'm excited to find out. It looked bad. It looked like it looked like a not good thing. But what did you think about this reveal, Roxy?
Good. Yeah. Well, DJ, what do you think? I always go first.
Yes.
I always want to know from you.
Okay. Well, I loved it. I think it's, so for those that don't know, I think the first introduction of what colloquially people call Lady Loki was in J. Michael Straczynski's Thor run, where all the Asgardians had been kind of like shunted off in hiding into mortal bodies, kind of like Thor, Donald Blank situation. And there's also a kid Loki, which there was rumors that we might be seeing that in this show. And I kind of thought maybe the kid in the first episode maybe was, but I guess wasn't. I'm interested. One, very cool. I'm interested that in the comic, that character has black hair. In the show, she has blonde hair. And I'm wondering if that's supposed to be kind of a nod to Thor, to represent other relationships Loki has had, that it's not just a reflection.
That's cool. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
I was just thinking it's because that's the color hair that she has.
Yeah, but I think the reason I questioned it is it's such an easy thing to fix if you really wanted that character to have black hair. That maybe it was intentional, and it's a way to not just as a reflection of Loki, but a reflection of Loki's relationships to other characters.
That's smart.
And I am curious to what that. Again, I'm still dubious on how time travel works. So is this a Loki from an alternate timeline? But alternate timelines aren't supposed to exist. So was that Loki at one point in history where he just went around as again, what we're calling Lady Loki?
Just because they're not supposed to exist doesn't mean they don't exist, which is why we're trying to fight them anyway.
Yeah.
So, I'm with you that I'm not completely clear on that. But I'm down for the ride. I think that she just looked really cool too.
Looked really cool. And the idea of Loki, I liked in the first episode, the kind of meta narrative of Loki doesn't, I think back to Roger Rabbit, Jessica Rabbit's like, I'm not bad, I'm drawn this way. Loki has a similar moment in the first episode where it's like, listen, this is my role. And almost talking about like, they write me this way. I don't necessarily want to do this. This is how I'm written into this. And so the idea of him,
and the Avengers are the one that effed it up. I did what I was supposed to do.
Also, I love, somebody pointed this out. I was looking at coverage pointing out that when he is smart enough to realize, when he's asked about it, he's smart enough to realize that the Avengers came back in time, but he's vain enough to assume it was to stop him and not to something completely unrelated. The idea of Loki literally having to fight himself is really interesting to me. And I'm excited to see, they chose this actress for a reason. And so I'm excited to see what her take on the Loki character is and how it compares and contrasts with Tom Hiddleston. Because I'm not familiar with this actress, Sophia DiMartino. And so it for me, they didn't pick a name. They chose a person like, oh, this is the one. And so I feel like that is going to be really interesting. And again,
I'm looking at her credits, and the only thing that she's been in that I've seen is Yesterday, and I don't remember her in Yesterday. Do you remember the movie that came out? You might not, because it was a musical. The one about the Beatles.
Yes, I did not see it, but I'm familiar with it.
Okay, it says that she was in it. Oh, and Carol. Oh, I guess maybe I do remember. Yeah. Huh. Okay.
And
never mind. I take back what I just said.
And I think they did a good job they kept showing, like, they kept going back to this footage of like branching timelines and how bad that was. And that was a good, like, seeds to plant that when she bombs it and you see all the lines appearing, your brain has been trained to like, oh, this is really bad. And I like knowing that we only have 6 episodes. I like that we didn't like, here's the Loki we're chasing, and here's what they're doing in a broad sense. I was like, yeah, you don't have time to like beat around the bush. We've got 6 episodes. Before we wrap up, any final thoughts?
That I think that at this point in the show, in the previous series, I was feeling really good about Wanda 2 episodes in. I was feeling very good about Falcon and the Winter Soldier 2 episodes in, and I'm feeling very good about Loki 2 episodes in. So I don't know that those 2 episodes dictate what I'll feel about the rest of this series, but so far so good.
Yeah. Same. I'm thinking they're doing really interesting stuff. Like you, I kind of don't know where we're headed, which is very exciting. Considering these 3 shows have all been getting a Phase 4, I think Phase 4, just in what we've been seeing from Shang-Chi and the Eternals and stuff like that, has me really excited for where things are headed. So we'll see. More. Give me more Loki. Give me more Mobius. And we will be back here. How this? Let us know in the comments where you think we go next, where you think this is headed. Do you think Kang is connected to the Timekeepers, or there are no Timekeepers and it's just Kang messing with stuff? Do you think we'll see Thor? Do you think we'll see Doctor Strange? Do you think we should just not anticipate any cameos because then we won't get our feelings hurt? Let us know in the comments down below. Roxy, where can they find you?
Everywhere at Roxy Striar, and then I'll let you know what I'm doing.
And you can join us both every Friday for the OSA show, where we go live at patreon.com/onlystupid answers to talk about all your favorite stuff, including this. And you can find me at DJ Talks Trash. And you can follow this show at Only Stupid Answers everywhere that matters, except on Twitter.
Yank out the vowels from stupid.
There you go. And we will see you all. Be sure to turn in the podcast on Monday. Please like and share and subscribe and all that. And we will see you all next time. Bye, everybody.